We're working with finding the zeros, and essentially that's the same thing as solving this equation. And so we want to look at this one. On this particular one, we can have up to 5 different answers, and that's our 5th power right here. The very first thing that we want to do with this one is to graph it on using our graphing calculator, your TI-84. And we'll pull that up right now. I'm going to enter in this entire equation right here into y equals. And I went ahead and did that just to save some time. And here's that equation. It's in y equals. I'm going to go to graph right now. It'll take just a second to graph it. There we go. We start to see it there. I can immediately see one intersection point right here, but I'm not quite sure where it is. I can use my calculator to determine where that is. We're looking to find the zeros, and so if I go second trace, we've done this before using our intersection or a value, but now we're looking for a 0, which is option number 2. So I'll go down to number 2, I'll hit enter. Now it says left bound, so I want to be on the left hand side. Right here is where it intersects. So I want to be somewhere on this side, and it doesn't have to be exact. So long as you're on that side, I'm definitely on the left hand side of it. So I hit enter. Now it asks me to move to the right hand side. So as long as I move, my cursor's gone there. So I'd like to at least see it in my window here. So my first one is right here. My second one will be up here. I'm going to hit enter again, and it's going to ask me to guess. I'll hit enter one last time. My 0 right here, my x value is 2. So I automatically know that one of my zeros is 2. My y value is 0, my x value is 2. Now I'm going to go back to the original problem now with that information. Okay, so on this one here, I know that my x value, my 0, is 2. So I go ahead and write that in. Well, now that I know that 2 is an answer, I'm going to set up my synthetic division. I'll write my 2 over here and set up my synthetic division. Looks something like that. Remember, with synthetic division, I take all the coefficients. This is 1, -2, 2, all the way down. And now I'm going to work through this one. Okay, so I automatically bring down my 1, then I go 2 times 1 is 2, and I go ahead all the way through it. Now I'm going to, because this is such a long problem, I'm going to kind of skip a couple steps here. If you need some help on synthetic division, though, go back to that section and study those. Okay, so here's what I ended up with my synthetic division. Now I'm going to try to convert this back into an expression here on this side with all my exponents and everything else. Well, I know that this is my remainder. My remainder was 0. So now I can work my way backward from here and just try to set that up. And there's what I end up with. X to the 4th plus 0. Notice I write the 0 here. 0x cubed plus 2x squared plus 0x. I go ahead and write those in my first time just to see where those are at. From here, I can go ahead and leave those out in my next step. So now I'm left with this one here, this expression. And again, this is still equal to 0. I moved the 0 was on this side, I just moved it on this side. It doesn't hurt. No matter what side it's on, you're okay. Well, on this one right here, I can factor this one. If this one were x squared plus 2x plus 1, I would know that it was x plus 1. Well, this one's really similar, only that this one is x to the 4th power. So instead of x plus 1 times x plus 1, it's going to be x squared plus 1 times x squared plus 1. So I'll go ahead and write that down. Now that I have both of these here, I can set them each equal to 0. So now I've got an x squared plus 1 equals 0 and an x squared plus 1 equals 0. Now I need to get x all by itself. I will subtract my 1 from both sides. That will leave me with an x squared equals -1. Okay, now I've got x squared equals -1. The way I get rid of that squared right here is to square root both sides. So if I just take the square root of both sides, that's going to leave me with a -1. Square root of -1, and what we've learned in class is the square root of -1 is I. Now remember, this one is being squared, so it can either be a positive I or a negative I. It doesn't matter. Either one, it works just fine. So that's what I get there. I get plus or minus I here. Okay, so I know that 2 was an answer, and now I've got this, plus or minus I and plus or minus I. Now, I don't write plus or minus I twice. Plus or minus I will actually cover it, so I can just write it one time. So my answer on this one is 2 and then plus or minus I.